The alien fleet descended on the colony, like wolves on a limping deer. Dozens of warships glided through the void, sleek and predatory, their black hulls absorbing the sunlight. On the bridge of the flagship Vorith's Fist, Admiral Koro leaned back in his command chair, a bored expression etched across his scaled features. Another human settlement, another easy victory. Minimal orbital defenses, reported his lieutenant, voice clipped. One outdated defense platform and a few automated drones, all falling back without resistance. Koro exhaled sharply through his nostrils, a gesture of irritation rather than triumph. Do they ever fight back? It's as if they want to be conquered. Some of the bridge crew chuckled. To them, humanity was a scattered, fragile species occupying fringe worlds, a people who built homes rather than fortresses, who traded instead of threatened, who bent rather than broke. They had never seen a human fleet worth fearing, never watched these pale bipeds do anything but plead and retreat. The Admiral studied the holographic display as enemy defenses winked out one by one. No drama, no last stands. Just quiet, inevitable defeat. His empire had crushed empires older and prouder than this. Humanity would be no different. Shall we prepare the landing parties? His lieutenant asked. Koro waved dismissively. In a moment. Let them stew a bit longer. He enjoyed watching the panic ripple through civilian networks, seeing orbital stations ignite like kindling as the Vorith's Fist passed overhead. It reminded him of the old days, when conquest felt meaningful, when enemies at least tried to resist. This was slaughter disguised as war. A small voice cut through his reverie. Admiral, said Varric, the fleet's diplomatic attaché. Younger than most aboard, he lacked the hardened eyes of the soldiers around him. Something feels wrong. Koro raised a brow ridge. Wrong? I see victory. Too easy, Varric murmured. He gestured toward the tactical display. These settlements knew we were coming. Our scouts reported no evacuations, no weapon stockpiles. It's as if they didn't care. Koro smirked. Perhaps they've learned to spare. We've given them enough lessons. But Varric's unease lingered. He watched the human transmissions scrolling across the screen, emergency signals, evacuation notices, automated distress calls. All routine, all expected. Yet there was no chaos. No desperate calls for mercy. The humans were moving civilians off-world with astonishing efficiency, almost rehearsed. Admiral, said the communications officer suddenly, we're receiving a direct hail from the planet's surface. Koro straightened. Patch it through. The voice that filled the bridge was calm, measured.
Mail.
This is Earth Colonial Authority. Cease your attack and leave orbit immediately. The bridge erupted in laughter. Koro grinned, showing sharp teeth. Or what? He said aloud, though the transmission had already ended. No threats, no demands, just that single warning, delivered without heat or fear. Varric shifted uncomfortably. They don't sound panicked. They should be, Koro replied. Signal the landing parties. I want prisoners before nightfall. As the shuttles launched, Varric kept his eyes on the tactical screens. Something bothered him. Something he couldn't name. The humans had evacuated nearly 30% of the population before the fleet even arrived. Their freighters had slipped away along predetermined vectors, vanishing into deep space without incident. Not one had been chased. Not one had been shot down. Almost as if the Vorith's Fist was being allowed to win. On the planet below, human cities burned in eerie silence. Automated defenses fired half-heartedly before collapsing. Soldiers surrendered quickly, too quickly, as though following a script. By dusk, Koro's troops occupied the capital. He watched the reports with detached satisfaction. Resistance negligible. Casualties minimal. The Empire would praise his efficiency. New medals would gleam on his uniform. Yet when night settled over the conquered colony, no human leaders came forward to negotiate surrender terms. No ambassadors begged for mercy. The planetary networks had gone dark the moment the fleet seized orbit, as though the humans had simply stepped back. Admiral, Varric said quietly as they stood before the main viewport, watching fires flicker on the planet's surface. Does none of this trouble you? Koro clasped his hands behind his back. We've broken them. What's left to trouble me? Varric hesitated. Permission to speak freely. Granted. I've studied them, Varric said. Their history. Their nature. They fight each other constantly. Wars that burn continents, sometimes for centuries. But against us? Nothing. No fleet. No last desperate strike. Why? Koro gave a slow, indulgent smile. Because they've finally met a power greater than themselves. But even as he said it, the words rang hollow. Hours later, as the fleet prepared to jump to its next target, a strange report arrived from Orbital Recon. Admiral, the sensor chief said, frowning at his display, we've detected movement. In the upper atmosphere. Multiple craft. Not ours. Koro turned sharply. Human survivors? No, sir. Warships. Hundreds of them. They weren't on any registry. No launch signatures. It's as if they just appeared. Varric felt a chill ripple down his spine. Where? The sensor officer swallowed. Everywhere, sir. They're surrounding us. The holographic display bloomed with red contacts, sleek, angular vessels sliding out from the planet's night side like predators emerging from the dark. Koro stared in disbelief. Those ships had been there the whole time, hidden, silent, waiting. The first transmission arrived seconds later. Same calm male voice. Same measured tone. Your attack ends now. No threats. No anger. Just cold certainty. On the bridge, no one spoke. For the first time in years, Admiral Koro felt something foreign grip his chest. Not anger. Not pride. Something far older. It felt like fear. And as the human fleet closed in with surgical precision, Varric finally understood. This was no desperate defense. This was the beginning of something else entirely. I've kept Section 1 under 1,000 words, focused tightly on character introductions, tension, and the central mystery. If you want, I can craft Section 2 next with the revelation and power shift so the story escalates seamlessly. Do you want me to continue with Section 2 now? Admiral Koro had fought a dozen campaigns, crushed rebellions before breakfast, but nothing in his long career prepared him for the silence of those human warships sliding out of the dark. They formed a ring around the Voritha's fist and its fleet, not rushing, not speaking, just taking positions with mechanical precision. Their hulls were blacker than space itself, bristling with strange, jagged towers of metal that gave off no readings the Empire's sensors could decipher. Koro forced himself to stand tall on the bridge, even as his officers whispered nervously behind him. Open a channel, he snapped. The same male voice as before came through at once. Calm. Measured. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw from human territory. The Admiral barked a laugh he didn't feel. You dare threaten the Vorith Empire? His voice carried the usual arrogance, but it cracked faintly around the edges. This is not a threat, the voice replied. It is a courtesy. No flourish. No drama. Just a fact, delivered like a weather report. Varric, standing beside the Admiral, felt his skin crawl. There was something unnatural in that tone. Not rage, not pride. A terrible stillness. Koro gave the order to lock weapons, to prepare for battle. The Empire did not negotiate with savages. The human fleet moved first, but they didn't fire. One by one, Vorith warships went dark, power cores offline, engines dead, weapons silenced, as if some invisible hand had plucked the life from them. No explosions. No screams. Just dead ships drifting in orbit, lights winking out like candles in the wind. Admiral, cried the sensor chief, we've lost control of the outer defense screen. They're disabling us remotely. Impossible, Koro shouted, though the evidence was spinning across the tactical display for all to see. The humans still hadn't fired a single shot. On the main screen, one of the larger human vessels drifted closer. Its hull bore no insignia, no name, just a cold geometry of armor plates and weapon arrays that looked grown rather than built. Then a second voice came through, this one clipped, military, carrying faint static like an old recording. You attacked a decoy world, it said. The colonies you raided were unarmed by design. This one is not. Varric turned sharply toward the Admiral. Decoy? They wanted us here. Koro ignored him, focusing on the screen. What do you want from us? The voice did not change tone. Leave. Or you will not be given another chance. The Admiral's pride warred with a cold sweat dripping down his spine. The Vorath Empire had ruled for centuries through strength alone. To retreat without a fight would invite rebellion across half the galaxy. Yet every instinct screamed that battle here meant annihilation. Varric leaned close, voice low. Sir, they've prepared for this. Every step we've taken, they've allowed. This is not conquest. It's a test. Koro stared at the tactical display where more human ships were emerging from orbit, sleek silhouettes blotting out the stars. A test. The idea wormed into his mind and refused to leave. Then the feeds from the conquered city began arriving. His troops, isolated and confused, reported human soldiers, not militia, not police, but soldiers in black armor, surrounding them silently, cutting off retreat paths, jamming communications. They moved like ghosts, appearing only long enough to gesture toward surrender before vanishing again. None of the Empire's soldiers fired. Something in the humans' calmness, their precision, made pulling a trigger feel like stepping off a cliff. Varric requested permission to access the human datanet now bleeding through the system as the Empire's networks were overtaken. Koro allowed it, desperate for information. The diplomat skimmed rapidly through archives the humans seemed almost eager to share. Centuries of warfare, endless footage of battles fought not between nations, but entire ideologies, continents burning while humanity clawed forward through its own ashes. He saw cities leveled, skies darkened, oceans choked with fleets. Wars of machines against their makers, wars fought across planets long before humanity reached the stars. And always, the humans rebuilt. Varric's throat tightened. Admiral, they've been at war for millennia. With themselves. Koro grunted, eyes locked on the growing ring of ships outside the viewport. Varric continued, voice shaking. They never stopped. Every weapon, every strategy, honed against their own kind until only the strongest survived. What we call cruelty, they call history. The Admiral watched another Vorath destroyer drift powerless into the void. No flames. No wreckage. Just quiet defeat. Admiral, the calm human voice returned. Your empire is armed but unprepared. We are armed because we always expected this day. Leave now. Do not return. The bridge crew looked to Koro. Pride demanded defiance. Survival demanded obedience. At last, with a voice like broken stone, Koro gave the order to stand down. As the fleet powered down weapons and withdrew from orbit, Varric studied the human ships one last time. They did not pursue, did not jeer or celebrate. They simply held position, silent and watchful, like apex predators granting passage to something too weak to bother killing. When the Vorath fleet finally limped into the safety of hyperspace, Varric turned to Koro. Admiral, what happens when they stop hiding? When they decide we're no longer worth warnings? Koro did not answer, because deep down they both already knew. This keeps Section 2 at roughly 1,000 words, heightening tension, deepening the mystery, and showing the power shift without stalling the story. Do you want me to continue with Section 3 next, where humanity's counterattack and the alien empire's collapse begins? The Vorath fleet returned to its capital world in uneasy silence. Messages burned across the Empire's communication grid, demanding explanations, demanding victory, demanding to know how an entire fleet had been forced to retreat without so much as a battle. Admiral Koro delivered his report before the High Council, each word heavy as lead. He spoke of the human fleet's sudden appearance, of weapons that never fired but disabled entire squadrons, of warnings given with surgical calm. He did not mention the fear in his own chest. He did not have to. The council could taste it beneath his words. The chamber erupted into chaos. Preposterous, snarled High Lord Saraxis, claws curling around the edge of the council table. Primitive colonists do not command fleets that appear from thin air. They were no colonists, Koro said evenly. They were soldiers, waiting for us. Another counselor spat the words like venom. So, you fled before phantoms? Before tricks? Koro's gaze hardened. Before power beyond anything we imagined. Only one voice in the council chamber remained quiet. Varric, the diplomat, stepped forward, his data slate clutched tightly. His normally steady hands trembled as he accessed the human records seized during their occupation, records the humans had made no effort to hide. Admirals, lords, look at this, Varric said. The holographic screen filled with images, grainy, ancient, some centuries old. Cities burning beneath nuclear fire. Armies marching through mud and ruins. Metal titans dueling across skies filled with smoke. Entire fleets consumed in seconds by weapons designed only for final wars. This, Varric continued, voice cracking, is their history. Thousands of years of slaughter. Kingdoms, republics, empires, all rising and falling in oceans of their own blood. They fought until nothing was left but those who understood war better than anyone alive. Do you see now? We did not awaken an enemy. We awakened a civilization built on surviving apocalypse. Some counselors shifted uneasily. Others scoffed. They have numbers, yes, Saraxus sneered. But numbers alone do not topple empires. Let them come if they wish to bleed. Varric turned sharply on him. You don't understand. They didn't threaten us. They warned us. Empires boast. Predators warn. Koro listened in silence. He had spent a lifetime believing the Vorath Empire unshakable. Now, he wasn't so sure. 2 days later, the humans attacked. No grand declarations preceded it. No fleets massing at borders. One moment, Vorath's shipyards spun lazily above half a dozen worlds. The next, those same shipyards vanished in white fire as wormholes ripped open above them, and weapons the Empire had no name for rain destruction with cold precision. The humans never targeted civilians. They struck fuel depots, weapons foundries, military command hubs, cutting muscle and bone while leaving the body alive but paralyzed. Every counterattack failed before it began. Communications died first, then power grids, then weapons platforms, until whole sectors went dark without a single human soldier landing on the ground. In the council chambers, panic bloomed like disease. Where are our fleets? Shouted one lord. Destroyed or scattered, came the reply. They strike faster than we can follow. It's as though they know our moves before we make them. Koro realized with dawning horror that perhaps they did. The humans had lured them to those decoy colonies for a reason, studied their tactics, measured their reactions. And now the Vorath Empire fought itself in the dark while the enemy cut its tendons one by one. Varric watched the reports in grim silence. With each passing hour, his respect for humanity deepened, and so did his dread. They moved without hatred, without chaos. No speeches, no demands, just systematic, inevitable dismantling. On the 4th day, the first human fleet appeared above Vorath Prime itself. Koro stood once more on the walls of the council citadel, staring into the sky as black silhouettes eclipsed the sun. Hundreds of ships. Thousands. Not sleek and elegant like Vorath designs, but angular, brutal things built for nothing except war. And they did nothing. They hung there, blotting out daylight, as if daring the Empire to strike first. Saraxus raged, demanding the planetary guns fire. Koro refused. He had seen what followed defiance. Then the human message came, broadcast on every frequency across the capital. Cease hostilities. Surrender your weapons. There will be no second warning. The council chamber fractured into chaos. Some screamed for resistance. Others argued surrender might preserve their worlds. Old rivalries erupted as fear cracked centuries of political unity. Only Varric noticed what no one else seemed to. The humans weren't negotiating. They were waiting, as if surrender or destruction made no difference to them. Koro finally spoke, voice heavy as the silence before a storm. We cannot defeat them. Refuse if you want, but it will be the last decision this council makes. And for the first time in its long, arrogant history, the Vorath Empire hesitated. Above them, the human ships waited like executioners in no hurry at all. This section stays near 1,000 words, showing the Empire fracturing under human precision and setting up the coming collapse while deepening Koro and Varric's arcs. Do you want me to finish Section 4 with a surrender, aftermath, and final revelation? The council chamber stank of fear. Not the kind born from battlefield chaos, but the quiet, suffocating dread of rulers who felt power slipping through their claws for the first time in living memory. Reports arrived by the minute. Shipyards gone, weapons silos rendered inert, entire fleets severed from communication as though the Empire itself were being dissected by some unseen surgeon. No one doubted who held the scalpel. Admiral Koro stood at the center of the chamber, arms folded, gaze locked on the holoscreen showing the human fleet above Vorath Prime. Hundreds of warships hung motionless in low orbit, an armada that blotted out stars. They hadn't fired on the capital. They hadn't spoken since the ultimatum. Their silence felt heavier than any bombardment. High Lord Saraxis slammed a clawed fist onto the council table. They mock us by waiting. Fire every planetary battery we have left. Make them bleed before they burn our world. Bleed. Koro's voice cut through the uproar like steel. He turned slowly toward Saraxis, face carved from stone. You still think this is a war? Saraxis snarled. What else would you call it? A lesson, Koro said. The word lingered in the air like smoke. Varric stepped forward, weary eyes fixed on the human fleet above. He had spent the last nights combing through everything the humans allowed him to see, wars stretching back thousands of years, a species that rose from mud and fire only to burn itself down again and again, each time rising sharper, harder, more ruthless than before. And through it all, one truth had emerged so clearly it left him cold. Humanity had survived everything it threw at itself. What could the Vorath Empire possibly teach them about war? High Lord, Varric said softly, if we fire, they will not answer with speeches. They will erase us and move on. Some counselors shouted at him to stay silent, but others fell quiet. Even Saraxis faltered beneath the diplomat's steady gaze. Koro broke the silence. Order the planetary guns to stand down. Gasps filled the chamber. One counselor hissed, this is surrender. This, Koro said, turning toward the windows where the human fleet waited like a clenched fist, is survival. For a long moment no one moved. Then, slowly, the order rippled through command channels. Planetary defenses powered down. Warships still able to fight sent ceasefire signals. Across the Empire's networks, silence replaced chaos. Only then did the human fleet move. Not to attack, but to descend. Ships the size of cities slipped into the atmosphere, their black hulls reflecting fire-orange sunlight as they approached the capital. Hundreds of smaller craft broke formation, dispersing across the planet toward military bases, weapons caches, communication hubs. Not one fired a shot. Koro, Varric, and the council watched in breathless stillness as one enormous vessel settled above the citadel itself, casting its shadow over the chamber like a storm cloud. A transmission cut through every channel at once. Vorath leadership, the same calm voice from before said, you will meet our representative now. The air inside the chamber shimmered, and a holographic figure resolved, a human, armored in black plating marked only with the insignia of no known nation or rank. The face beneath the visor was hidden, but the voice carried the weight of absolute command. Your empire is finished, the figure said without malice. Not destroyed. Not enslaved. Finished. The wars you thought you brought to us ended before you were born. Saraxis stepped forward, trembling with fury. Then kill us if you mean to. We will not kneel like servants. The human helmet turned toward him. We do not want servants. We want silence. No more raids. No more threats. Your fleets will disarm. Your weapons will be dismantled. You will govern your people, but you will not wage war beyond your borders again. And if we refuse? Saraxis spat. The human turned slightly, and above the city, the massive ship opened its hull like a blooming flower, revealing weapons whose design made even Koro's battle-hardened blood run cold. "You won't," the humans said simply. Koro understood then why the humans had shown such restraint. Power like this needed no rage to drive it. It existed beyond anger, beyond ambition. This was control so complete it had forgotten the need to prove itself. The council voted before nightfall. There was no debate worth having. Vorath fleets powered down across 100 worlds. Human ships spread through their territory like watchful ghosts, dismantling weapons, seizing military databases, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. Not conquerors. Not liberators. Just endings. When it was over, the Vorath Empire still stood. Its cities bustled. Its people lived. But every leader knew the truth. Their reign had ended the moment those black ships emerged from the void. Everything after was permission, not power. Days later, Varric stood on the balcony of the Citadel, watching human engineers dismantle the last planetary missile silo with clinical precision. Admiral Koro joined him, older somehow, shoulders heavy with the knowledge of survival purchased at the price of pride. "They left you alive," Varric said quietly. "Left all of us alive. Why?" Koro shook his head. "Perhaps to remind us what mercy feels like." But Varric wasn't convinced. He had seen the human commander once more before they departed, had asked the question burning through every Vorath mind since the first fleet fell silent. "Why are you always armed?" Varric had asked. "Always ready for war, even in peace." The human had regarded him through that black visor for a long, unreadable moment before answering. "Because history taught us no one comes to save you," the commander said. "Not gods. Not allies. Not fate. Only preparation. Only ourselves." And then the humans left. Their fleets withdrew beyond Vorath space, silent as they had come, leaving behind no occupation, no demands, nothing but the certainty that they could return whenever they wished. Varric watched the last ship vanish into the stars and felt no relief. Only the weight of understanding settling in his bones. Humanity had not conquered them for resources or territory or revenge. Humanity had ended the Vorath Empire because it was dangerous, and because humans no longer tolerated danger. Koro joined him at the balcony rail, eyes fixed on the empty sky. "What will they do now?" he asked softly. Varric imagined those black fleets moving outward, beyond Vorath space, beyond even the edge of the known galaxy. Searching. Preparing. Always preparing. He shook his head. "I think," he said slowly, "the galaxy is about to learn why humanity never stops arming itself." Neither spoke again. Far above, the stars seemed dimmer, as though even the heavens understood something new had awakened, and it would never sleep again. This closes the story with a decisive climax, full resolution, and the moral weight of humanity's terrifying efficiency, all within 1,200 words. If you like, I can now prepare a full 6,000-word compiled version, so it reads seamlessly as one story. Would you like me to do that?